Alright, just a quick video here. I received a package in the mail from the Moon and the Maker. They're the makers of the Moonlight Duo tint and hue pads. They have a hybrid ink coupled with the just regular white pigment ink here to get multiple kind of value impressions out of one stamp. You might think kind of tapping into some color and then going into the white. That's kind of a foreign type of or very strange kind of notion to get these different impressions. But in their videos, they just kind of wipe off the white pad, and it comes off really good. Just surprisingly so. And then you just re-ink this. You don't take off all the ink out of it, by scrubbing this or anything like that. But you take it off enough. And if it has a little bit of that version of that hue in there, it's fine because this is a dedicated white for that color. But I've done different videos in the past using these. I really love them. I love the kind of I don't know, the viscosity of that hybrid ink. I had never used hybrid inks before. I didn't even know what they were. I knew they were some kind of, fusion of two different inks, but I learned that they were a fusion of the oil-based pigment inks and the water-based dye inks. I don't know how they're merging them together, but it's all kind of interesting. Anyways, the four pads that they sent today, I guess these are two new colors here. This one is turquoise and this one is lavender. And these two here are just straight black and white pads, which is good. I needed a different pad, a new pad there. I'm still going to use the other ones that I have too, but it's always nice to kind of have a different one to kind of compare and contrast. All right, now I'm not going to do a whole scene using these right now. I just got these. I didn't even know they were sent in. This is not a paid advertising or anything like that, but they did send these to me, complimentary, thank you. I always like to play around with new media. I've never met a pad I didn't like. As I'm sure all of you who are probably watching this can relate to as far as our media goes. But I thought I'd just give it a quick test out with this one right now. This is a silk weight Mohawk paper, and it's a cardstock, and I just stamped my cave composition on here. What is it, yesterday, or is it 2 days? I don't even know. I think it was yesterday. And I thought I would test this out. I would test out the hybrid ink on this dye-based ink. Pretty much matte paper. The silk weight has a little bit of sheen to it. But it's absorbent. It's more absorbent than like a glossy cardstock. So I think the hybrid inks work really fantastic on those types of papers. I'm not sure if I've tried the hybrid inks on glossy. I don't know. I think I have. I'm not sure. All right, so just a cotton ball here, 100% cotton. And let's go in and let's test this out. Let's test out I guess we're testing out two different things. We're testing out how these dry and how these apply. So let's test it out and get a feel for it here, okay? All right, now I'm just kind of modeling these rocks a little bit. And what that means, I'm not just coloring them, okay? I'm kind of adding it in some areas like that, but leaving some parts of the rock nice and light, okay? So that looks like a three-dimensional object, okay? Now, if you ever wonder where to add, shadows and how to model your rocks, I just tell people to just do partial rock, and if you want to know where, like on this stamp right here, this one here, stamp kind of in a circular pattern if you didn't watch that video, but in the darker areas right in here, okay, I've already pre-added the shading right here. Here it's shaded down here, lighter on top. That's supposed to be lichen up there, so that's why it's dark up top there. But as far as the modeling goes, adding shadow, I add it to the area where there are shadows already, okay? So it makes it easy. You just have to observe your imagery, okay? And if there's a collection of a lot of tiny little dots clustered together, that's your shading right there. All right, so just if you have kind of a hard time seeing light and shadow, I'm not, not just in terms of eyesight or something like that, but a lot of people are, they're tuned in on form, the outline of something, okay? But in terms of things like volumes and light and shade, shadow and light, you just have to um, kind of adjust your vision to encompass more of the overall. You can see a lot of the shadows on this, dark and light, dark and light on top. All right? All right, so anyways, adding that down. Now, I don't always just stick to that formula, just kind of a general kind of a description on how, to utilize light and shade. On cards like this, when you're doing a quarter page card, we don't have to go into every little object and just say, okay, wait a minute, is that rock kind of dark there? Is it lighter there? You can just make kind of the perimeter of this whole thing darker, all right? And that kind of creates a little bit of a spot, light on the interior. And when you do that, when you make the areas on the outside of the card a little bit darker, just like in photography or whatever, in portrait, studio portrait photography, a lot of times there's kind of a darker border around people. And that focuses the light. And focus, the viewer's focused on the subject in the center. And also, because we're, don't have like light bulbs and photo prints or something like that, coming from the back, this is all reflected light. So, if you have a little person, in a portrait photography, class picture, whatever, it looks like the light is coming from within. So, it puts a spotlight on someone, but it kind of makes them, glowing. They're like the source of light. That's why they put that kind of darker perimeter around people. So see that right here? How I'm just kind of darkening the perimeter right there. If these rocks were just on the bottom and not a cave situation, then you just darken the bottom and leave them light on the top. Things are usually top lit out in nature. Not that everything has to be. If you want to bottom light something for a drama or something like that, then do so. All right. So anyways, see that right there? But look at the dimension it's giving to the rocks, doesn't it? See, here's the difference between these rocks down here and these ones over here that are untouched. You have more light on those ones. Doesn't mean you have to address everything completely uniformly either, okay? You can leave some things light and some things dark, You can model some things and, other things are just left alone. Stampscape stamps inherently have a lot of volume, texture, and description of form in the designs themselves, okay? So you can leave it, but kind of reiterating what's on the imagery itself gives it a little bit more, it kind of gives it a little bit more body, don't you think? There's a little bit more of a solid feel to it. It gives it kind of visual weight and opacity. You're saying that, these rocks aren't just clear, with everything in the background showing, the light showing right through them. You're giving them a little bit more of a visual weight. And it's variation, too. Rubber stamps can't do a a true grayscale. All these are just a collection of dots in different concentrations. The more dots, the darker it looks, and the more kind of gray it looks. But this, you can actually add gray. Anyways, okay, so, going back to this whole subject of the hybrids, or just pigmentings in general, they're pretty nice to color with, okay? They're thicker styles of ink, right, than your dye-based inks. So they really kind of spread around really nice, they stay thicker, so it's, I don't know, instead of like applying something that's absorbing into the paper very quickly, you're dealing with something that's staying on the surface. It's a little bit more surface-oriented, okay? Pigment inks are very surface-oriented. The hybrids have the dye-based inks, so they're probably penetrating and soaking into the paper a little bit faster. But that looks pretty good to me right here, okay? Now, you can do other types of colors. I'm just doing it in grayscale right now. But grays or something like that, you can apply some different colors on here. I haven't done it, but let's test this out. Okay, now this is wet, all right? I mean, I don't feel like heat setting it right now, but I guess you certainly can. And then you can take some alcohol inks like this. This is just a really super light green. Alcohol ink is probably... Alcohol inks wouldn't really blur out, dye-based inks too much if you were doing this toning process with water-based dyes, right? But there is that pigment ink aspect in here, so, we're dealing with oil, and alcohol will dissolve oil. It's just as if you were cleaning up a countertop or something like that if there was an oil spill. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to just clean it up just with straight water. You add a little, detergent to it or something like that, and it'll cut the grease, but alcohol won't make this run. But anyways, look, I'm just doing it in a very light tone right here. But, so I'm coloring here. This is a very light value of green, so I'm not really darkening. I mean, you are darkening because green's going to be lighter than white, the white of the paper. But, you can color as much of this as you want with this, and you can layer. All right, now, maybe this green kind of picking up some of that black is actually, I think it's working out pretty good because it's kind of giving me some kind of combination of green and, that black that's been laid down there. But let's see if you can kind of tell that green in there. See that right there? That's kind of fun to add in, and a lot of you have kind of variations and different values of, different colors. So, you can utilize them maybe if you haven't utilized them this way, in a little bit of a different fashion. Okay, let's see here. Let's see what other colors I have. Here's a brownish gray. Let's try this one right here. All right, now I'm getting a little bit darker than that green right there, right? So what do? You can just concentrate it in those darker areas, right? Like that. See that? Hitting it in the shadows. So what are we doing? We're just reiterating what you've done with some of that Moonlight Night right there. Okay. But I don't know, don't you think that, that spread around really beautifully on here? Again, I'm doing it on kind of a more matte style of paper. I don't know if it would work on glossy. Maybe it would, I don't know. But it certainly works well on this. But see this right here? This is pretty good. And this is kind of an understated color right here. The two ones that I've worked with that green and this brownish gray. Couldn't remember the name. I was saying, is this actually gray, brownish gray? All right, so we've laid those down. Here's a little bit of a super light blue. And I'm just going to use it as a kind of a blending tool. I do have a blender pen too, but let me just go in here and add a little bit of a bluish tinge. Okay, so anyways, I'm not doing it, anything in here on the interior here yet, but there we have it right there. Kind of a nice grayscale kind of describing of the forms, okay? Giving them mass and weight. And then it's just simple enough. You want to make things really easy for yourself, just use like some really pale value colors to go in here and tint them a little bit, right? And when you're working with those really light tones and you're kind of building into the the darker ones, the brighter ones, it's easy enough to apply those different colors like that. But look at this one I've done here too. Around the black and whatever, I've left some areas still light. You know what I mean? So it's not harder work to not do as much. You know what I mean? So you just leave some areas just as is. And it kind of, it oscillates things. It oscillates the light and darkness. And when you have this kind of variation that's happening throughout the piece, it could potentially add up to a greater visual richness by having that variation in there. So just, in other words, what I'm telling you is just, it's really to do less, you know what I mean? People might see these rocks a lot of times, but they're used to coloring in outline styles of designs where you're creating an outline, kind of like a coloring book, an old-fashioned coloring book. And then you're just coloring in that whole area. But instead of seeing something like these rocks like this as just one whole shape to color in uniformly, just color in a little bit less so you oscillate things again, you know? Use a little bit less, use a little bit more in some areas, you know, more is mostly around on the perimeter like that. And then when you're coloring, don't change your kind of mindset. It's just you're coloring some things. And I start off in the shadows. And then I leave other things just as is, and that creates your variation right there. Okay, so anyways, I thank the Moon and the Maker for sending these. I'll try these out, and got to try out that violet there, like that. Purple used to be my favorite color as a little kid. I always tell people my purple crayons were always, little tiny stubs until the next year when you got, a brand new, pack of crayons, and then you got to start off with another, whole purple again or whatnot. My favorite purple is probably a little bit darker though. But anyways, fun stuff. Can't wait to use them. And thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. You can tell me what you want me to stamp in here. I don't know. I can't figure it out. You can always leave it like that or something like that. It says, I don't know, happy 1 millionth birthday. Or I don't know. Yeah, I'm just joking. Cave like that. I don't know. It makes for a good opening here. I can put like someone standing here actually too. Like a person or a deer or something like that. That would be kind of interesting. It's always hard to tell which way, is up and which way is down. Every way kind of has a little bit of a different personality to it, but that's the thing with this type of thing like that. Could go any way you want. Okay. Thanks again.